Sorry, we're waiting for somebody who has a real camera.
And we are live.
Hi. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
This is Jason van Gaal, and he is here from Synapse, and you founded Synapse.
Correct. Yes.
So this is your baby.
You could say that. It's my, yes. Not biological, but yes.
So in this case, I wanted to sit down with Jason. As many of you already know, I am talking about data centers, what this process looks like, what it means for our environment, what it means, the environment in which people live in. And since it's spreading like wildfire, as you can admit, especially across the States, context for what it looks like, how it impacts communities, why it's necessary, what aspects of it are going to be beneficial for the economy, what setbacks might there be. Rather than speculating, I thought it would be great to speak to somebody who actually does this, because I don't. So where are you from?
Originally from Ottawa, and more recently lived north of Montreal in a tiny community of, I want to say 3,500 people, so even smaller than Olds.
You beat us.
Yes, yes. The big controversy in our community most recently was the $6 million library that the town wanted to move forward with, which we, there's some residents who were happy and unhappy that the project went forward. Yes.
So do you have enough readers in 3,500 people to justify?
It's hard to do the math for me as an avid, user of my computer, but I think some people really like books, and it's important. There's a community space for them to read those books, and I mean, in fairness, the library is quite beautiful. And my 15-month-old got to meet the Grinch there, which he was not super pleased about, but
Significant place in life. So you grew up in Ottawa. Were you tech-minded as a kid? How old are you? Average? Is that
I'm I think you're allowed to ask guys that. I'm 40 years old. 40 and a half now, I suppose, but 40 years old. And I've been kind of working in the data center space since how old was I? 20? So almost 20 years, maybe 21, so it's like 19, 20 years now in the data center space.
So were you the kid who grew up driven to computers? Because we're about the same age, and I can tell you my parents didn't have a computer till I was 15. I hand wrote all of my essays for high school.
Yes.
I have really great handwriting because of it, but my skills with technology are much more reduced from lacking that foundational stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose I got exposed quite early. My dad worked at Bell Canada, at Bell Simpatico, which was like an early internet internet provider. And I remember he used to bring home like an old version of a laptop, which like there was like a game on it that we used to get to play. And that was really fun. Yeah. And so I guess exposed early. And I learned how to type. I remember talking on MSN, or before that was like ICQ. So that was I think the drums used to how to type in like grade 6 or grade 7, and like that was kind of boring. But then like to talk to the girls on ICQ.
I just recently was referencing to my young adult children that we had ICQ and MSN as our dating apps. And the fact that you would have to sit there and wait for your dial-up to connect so long, and the person would have left the chat for then, and they're like, the comprehension is low.
Yeah.
It is an alternative universe, which I think speaks to the progress that we're in of speed of transition within technology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you go from that. What did you then study to be able to be in the position where you're starting Synapse?
So I went on to become a mechanical engineer.
For all the dumb people, what does that entail?
I mean, you go to a university, and we learn, we do advanced calculus, algebra, lots of physics related stuff, chemistry, and then we kind of specialize in specific areas. So you learn about fluid dynamics, HVAC systems, things like that as part of that.
Is it a normal trajectory to head into the technology world with that?
Yeah, you can. I would say my background is kind of tech adjacent, where I don't actually operate the servers. I don't run the servers, but the systems, the mechanical systems, the electrical systems that support the servers. So the mechanical engineering element transfers well into that. And then kind of mechanical engineering not being enough, I went on to learn about, electrical engineering. And as a professional engineer, you're allowed to stamp things that you're comfortable with. So the more you learn and the more you become comfortable with, and the more you can apply. So
when you graduated, what was the thought of pursuit at that point?
yeah, so I mean, I originally wanted to actually go into business. I didn't want to be an engineer, but I received some great advice from my father, and he suggested I, become an engineer. And if I wanted to go into business later, then I could do that, because I was like,
and you're kind of stuck in both worlds now.
And you could do both, right? But it's harder to go the other way if you're a business person. To be an engineer, it's harder to go that one direction. So that was kind of the advice I received from him. And then, I always pursued entrepreneurial kind of exploits. At one point, I wanted to start a daycare for children as like in university as like my first business, and my mother, rightfully so, asked me, "Do you actually really like children?"
Overseeing it or engaging with the kids?
Running it, but engaging. It was gonna be like in a church basement, and I was gonna have a whole bunch of kids. And it was like give me a daycare, camp thing, and I had a spreadsheet put together. And she's like, "Jay, do you like children that much?" And I was like, "Not really." she's like, "Hey, you may not want to start a daycare with them." And I was like, "Solid advice."
Yeah.
So
low threshold by 2 p.m.
moved off of that idea, right? But there are things I do like, and I have a son now, which I of course love very much. But he's my problem, not I'm not taking someone else's challenge. So
when you bypassed the daycare concept, what became the next logical step? Avoiding child rearing in terms of starting a business. Yeah. So the first company I worked for was a data center design and build firm, and I had lots of opinions on how they should run that organization. And so ultimately, in the last kind of large recession in 2008, 2009, I was let go, and all the things that I suggested they should do, I just went off and did myself in my own business. So that was my first company. It was an engineering firm or design firm. Was it hard to start at that stage in the economy? Yeah, it was. I was 21 or 22 at the time. And, people are trusting me to design these expensive facilities for them. They were smaller at that time. They were smaller computer rooms. But did they feel like you were green behind the ears being told? Oh, for sure. Yeah, I had comments on my age. Absolutely. But then you do good work, and they're like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. So that was kind of the evolution. And then went on to start another data center company in Ottawa called Granite Networks. That was, I want to say, in 2012, 2013. And that was, at the time, I would say probably one of Ottawa's largest data centers. If not the largest, but... And when you're running something like that, what's the workforce that you're navigating? Are you one of many people in the process, or are you hands-on in everything, handling it solo? No, one of many people, right? To build a great company, you need a great team. And so, hiring people that are better than yourself in specific areas is an absolute critical part of success for building an organization that scales. Do you enjoy being in a leadership position then, if you're the one starting it? I to be honest, no, I don't love being in a leadership position. It comes with the job. Yeah. And every leader has a different style of leadership. I try to, my personal style is leading by example and trying to inspire others through the way that I would do something, try to inspire. And that's different than other CEO friends that I know as well. But for my team, it seems to work well. So if you've got Granite happening at that stage, what years are we talking? That was 2012, 2013, I think. So completely different technological experience than what we're experiencing. Yeah, I mean, there's as part of every evolution in the data center industry, and this is another evolution that we're experiencing now, but as part of every evolution, there are different things that stay the same and different things that will change, right? So, back then the cooling density that we had with our customers was more 2, 3, 4 kilowatts per cabinet. So there was a specific, we used raised floor, we pushed air under the floor and cooled the cabinets. And, there were certain design challenges that we dealt with back then that were, different than we would experience in subsequent generations of the data center evolution. We didn't do things called hot aisle containment back then either. The density wasn't there, so we didn't need to do that.
Yeah. And
And what would data centers at that point have been? And is it data or data?
I think you can say both.
Is it kind of like messing up your last name?
Yeah, I think and if you want to really mix people up, you just change it in the middle of the conversation. You know,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So in regards to those at that time, what were they facilitating?
What were data centers? Yeah, so a lot of it was a lot of time back then. It was kind of as cloud was getting started. So a lot of the time back then, a small business didn't want to build their own data center in their office, so they would put it in a co-location facility, and that's what we had built was a co-location.
Is that resistance due to space,
Well,
volume?
no, I mean, so when you build these facilities, they're quite expensive. And if you're a small tech company that only needs a few servers, you don't necessarily want to invest in like the whole infrastructure around that. So other people were doing that for them. You know, the same way that you would know, should you build the house to sell your house yourself, or should you rent it, or do you want to rent an apartment building like room, or do you want to own the apartment building? Like we were kind of the apartment building owners, and then each of the servers or the customers were the tenants.
So how many tenants would you have at that point?
We have it at Granite. It was a while ago, so like don't hold me to this number, but I would say it was like probably 30 or 40 customers.
Okay. So you're navigating across multiple different streams of business.
Yeah, correct.
Or multiple different
Like a lot of tech companies. We had a Bitcoin company at one point back then too. Wish I'd listened to that guy. Some government customers. The government had a lot of stuff mostly in their own facilities at that point, but they had started looking at like us for disaster recovery environments and things like that.
Yeah. And so from Granite, you moved on to Root?
Moved on to Root, yeah. So that was I think we started Root in 2013 or 2014. I thought I took like a few months off between businesses, but when I looked back through my emails, it was like 2 weeks. But it felt like months, right?
That happens to workaholics.
Yeah, that happens to us. So went on to start Root. That was in Montreal. And that was a small facility in Montreal. It was a 5 megawatt design in a 12 or 15,000 square foot building in an industrial area.
Yeah.
And come all the things that as you build businesses, you learn about what you did well and what you did horribly wrong. And we did a lot of things horribly wrong at the first one. We did a lot of things well as well. But you kind of like, I never want to do this again. I never want to do that again. And then you apply that into your next venture.
Did it have to do more with the components of navigating clients and personnel, or was that more to do with the technology itself that you were like, this is horribly wrong?
So like some of it is like it was more on the client or like service offering side of things. And I learned as a leader, or not being a leader at that point. I learned a lot back then as well on that side for myself. But it was more around what you can't be everything to everybody. And so what we figured out we were really good at was the co-location side of things, but trying to build a cloud for our customers that was not like our zone of excellence as a business. So when we went on to do Root, it was kind of like focusing in on things we do well, which was co-location. Like I know how to build data centers really well, so let's like focus on that.
At that point, are you still navigating 30, 40 clients, or had you narrowed it down?
So when we started Root, we started it with no clients. So we had actually sold Granite. Rogers bought us in 2013, and then we started a new company. So.
And why Montreal?
One of the challenges that we had was the cost of power in Ontario was quite high.
Having moved from Ontario as a normal consumer of power,
Yeah.
let alone.
Yes. Yeah. And so I had like spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets, and I built a spreadsheet, and then it's like the cost that we can offer our customers, including power, with all of our services, is the same price as just the cost of power in Ontario. So like, why would you build data centers in Ontario? You should build them in Quebec.
And there's no impact then to the client moving to a different province to get the same service.
So some people wanted to be hyper local. So and that was a kind of change in the technology trend, right? So originally it was like cloud was just starting when Granite was going, and then it was getting more kind of advanced, and more customers were going into the cloud. And so people started at that point to accept like, hey, I don't just need to be able to touch my servers. I can work remotely on my servers. And that opened up their ability to potentially be in different markets. And so that was like then the evolution. So that opened up the opportunity to build a more cost-effective market and to provide a better price point to customers without compromising on the quality of the service that we could offer them. So
Did you find an easy transition from Ottawa into Montreal, or was that its own challenge?
that was I mean, I took immersion in schools, but I'd forgotten a lot of it. I had a French Canadian girlfriend at the time who was very pleased that I could do this in Montreal, and so I started ramping up my French. So that was I did 1 or 2 French presentations, which was I think I read off a script. I mean, I typed it off and I just like read.
Did they grade you in your skills at the end of it?
I think you get points for trying.
I don't know.
So I was probably like a D-, but like the guy tried, and maybe I got a B- or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
did you have to harness that skill in order to continue to progress in business in that economy?
Yeah, it's true. I said there was some companies that would win more of the local Quebec market business, and we were winning more of the international business.
Well, and we have probably some international people paying attention to this who don't understand that Canada is bilingual. So when he's discussing French, it literally is a French requirement to be working within Montreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
For everyone in the States and around the world.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our team. I mean, our team was fully bilingual. I was probably the worst in terms of bilingualism, but everyone else was bilingual. We had meetings in French or English, depending on who was in the meeting and who spoke French the best or who spoke English the best. So,
So you scaled up from 5 megawatts, which now feels comedic considering.
Yeah, and at the time it was huge. It was like that's a lot, right? Like that. If 5 megawatts was 5 megawatts was not the biggest site in Montreal at the time, but it was like maybe half the biggest site. So it was quite large. And and then we had some customers that were international hyperscale customers that approached us, and they saw what we did with our first site, and they saw the time that we built it within. They saw the kind of excellence is a strong word, but like the design hitting industry standards, and the operational kind of policies and procedures that we had in place. And they are like, hey, we need to like grow really fast in this market, and we think you guys are the ones that could build it quickly and do all this stuff. Can you go build us a 50 megawatt data center? And so we're like, yeah, sure, why not?
So you're innovating at this point how to do cooling systems.
Yeah.
Were you doing closed water cooling?
Yeah, so we used in Montreal a technology that was air-to-air heat exchanger technology. So we're an early adopter of that technology. So it's like an enthalpy. I think I always mix it up. It's enthalpy or entropy, but I'm pretty sure it's an enthalpy wheel. And there's a wall in the middle, and it would spin, and we get cold on the outside and warm up with the data center, and that's how you transfer heat and cool the room. And then if it got too hot outside, then you would have mechanical systems that would kick in. And that was like a free cooling technology. There's different free cooling technologies that you use in different situations, like chilled compressor chiller situation. So you can use those as well for pre-cooling, but we decided to use that technology is based on the climate and the efficiency that we felt that too.
Did Montreal climate help aid in the cooling itself?
Yeah, definitely. Montreal's, I mean, every climate is different, right? So like Montreal, when it's hot, it's really humid. And so like, an adiabatic pre-cooling system would not work well in that climate because the air is already pretty saturated, so you can't drop. So a lot of like data centers that will build in the desert, they use a lot of water because they're like, it's really hot outside but super dry. So if we spray water into the air, it actually drops the temperature, and then we can get better cooling performance.
Yeah.
But then you're wasting a lot of water, and you do that. So, we would never use that technology in Montreal, even though there's tons of water. Like the St. Lawrence is right there, because it just really wouldn't do much. On the hot days, it's also generally humid. So it's like, that's just not the technology that it would make sense to use. But the enthalpy kind of Kyoto wheel was the right technology for that market. So.
Okay. And I've for the people who don't understand, because until the term data center came up, even within the news, the concept of what heating means, what is happening within these centers that causes this heat for the average consumer of opening a laptop or a phone and not knowing the technology itself.
Yeah.
Why is that an issue to be addressed?
why is it an issue? Why do we need to remove heat from data centers? Yeah. I mean, the best example I'd used before was like, you have a laptop on your lap, although laptops used to be hotter when they were sitting on our laps, I found. Now they've kind of figured that out. Okay. Because we want longer battery life, so they've optimized for.
But it's just the wizards doing it. Like, it's not actual science. It's just, we've got small little wizards now who are resolving all these problems.
Exactly. That's it, right? That's it. The wizards are doing it. But yeah, so it's like, laptops make heat, so your lap is too hot, you want to cool it. Now imagine you put like 10,000 laptops on your lap. That would be like really uncomfortable and would require a different level of, cooling technology. So
the small little fans contained within a laptop would not be sufficient to meet the typical need for larger server banks?
Server banks. No, typically not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like the servers go into cabinets that are kind of like, can be varying in height, but 6 to 8 feet in height. And they get stacked up. And and then you kind of push cold air in front of them and they suck in the cold air and there's a whole bunch of hot air that comes out and then you pull that up into the ceiling generally, or there's different ways you can do it, but then it gets rejected to atmosphere through the cooling transfer process.
So were you able to get and excuse my ignorance in technology, the cost for renting these components, you were able to get that to a reduced cost through less heat issues? So did it improve the function of the cost per unit for the people who were utilizing the space?
So you like the unit economics that we were able to deliver for people?
That's the term.
It's interesting. We didn't actually charge our customers less. I tried to at one point. I was like, hey, we're building a really great product and I'll give it, and we figured out how to build it for less. We'll give it to you for less. And they're like, what's the catch? I'm like, there is no catch. And so we kind of figured out, like, actually people, when you don't charge them enough, don't assign value to the product.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, well, we'll just increase our prices.
Human dilemma.
Yeah. So we'll just increase our prices and yeah. So yeah, they didn't really receive a lot of the unit economic benefit. What they did appreciate was the way that we simplified the design without impacting the reliability or the other attributes that the customers wanted, did allow us to build faster.
And you scaled that up to what? And in how long?
The data, like, so in Montreal,
Yeah.
How big was the facility? So we had a 5 megawatt site, a 50 megawatt site, and then a 10 megawatt site.
Okay.
The 5 and the 10 were kind of right beside each other, and the 50 was maybe 20 kilometers away from those sites.
And were you refabbing industrial buildings at that point or building from scratch?
Yeah, for 2 of them, we did a brownfield retrofit, which is a refab of an industrial building. For one, we did a greenfield build. Yeah.
And when you exited, was that a relief to put it aside for a minute, or were you eager to jump back into something?
No, I mean, there's you have a mixed basket of emotions as an entrepreneur when you sell a business, because it's not supposed to be your baby, but it can become your baby. You do become attached to it, and you become attached to the people that you're working with.
In your case, did some of the people exit with you? See, I told you, they have a listener.
Yeah. Many stayed.
Yeah.
Many stayed. Because the company bought us for, what we were doing, and they bought us for the team that was doing it. So, yeah. But no, many stayed. It's certainly mixed feeling when you sell a business.
He's normally not this social, but apparently he likes you. Hey, I'm there. Move along.
So in regards to selling and leaving, what did you do in the timeline between that and this moment that we're in?
I built an artificial intelligence company with one of my first team members.
Okay. What does that look like? Because that sounds much more elaborate to the average person.
Yeah.
And to you, it probably sounds very normal.
Yeah, that's fair. So it was a small company. It was like 8 people, and we had a thought of, hey, we can build an AI assistant that it, helps manage phone calls for you, helps manage your calendar for you, does some cool stuff like that. And we tried to build that out, and it was kind of working, but a lot of times with business, you kind of have to do them at the right time. So you can have a good idea, but it can be too early or too late, and the business won't work out. And so with that one, we tried for 2 years to kind of make it work, but no success. And then after that, I went and built a house for myself, like with my hands. Like I designed it, and that was a lot of fun. Like I was in the ground shoveling dirt and like working way too many hours, and my wife would be like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like come eat. I'm like, no, this dirt needs to get moved. Yeah, this dirt needs to get moved from here to here. So we did that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I got to learn about like ICF foundations and like yeah, I actually did like flat roofs. Flat roofs. I don't like flat roofs. They leak all the time. And it's like I have a house with a flat roof and it leaks. And our data center had a flat roof and it leaked. And I'm just like, you know what? Why do people do flat roofs? They look cool, but like they're not super useful.
So long as the sky rains.
Yeah. So it's,
No.
so I don't do flat roofs anymore. So this house got to have a not flat roof, nice single pitch, clean runoff, no edges where the snow and the ice are going to build up and water's going to get in.
Do you drive your wife crazy with the conversation about the necessity for that? Or
No,
do
you just don't talk about. You don't talk about that with your wife. Yeah, she wants to talk about her hard day, but you don't talk about your roof problems.
In context, doctor, roof problems.
Yes.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So with all of that, what became, well, first I want to touch back into the AI thing, because that's really an extreme concept for people to go, I developed an AI. What is the process of developing an AI, even if it's a failure as a structural business? What does that look like to create something in this environment?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots, and like AI, if data centers are moving fast, AI is moving, like, and the software behind AI is like evolved. So like most of what I like, let's say now is probably not even relevant anymore, but at the time, there was like, well, there still are neural nets behind, and there's different kind of ways that you can program those neural nets. And so I learned how to code in Python, and, kind of build some of these neural nets. And I was like, oh, I'll be a great coder. And then I kind of realized like, maybe I could be a great coder, but it's going to take me a few years. And by then, what I'm doing now is not going to be relevant anymore. So we hired some great coders to work on that and built out the team. Yeah.
So for the common man, AI at this point is using ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity, any of these systems, or Claude.
Yeah.
What does it look like for you? Because obviously your connections and your conversations are happening at a different level than we are in this community. What is happening within the market for AI, and what are we about to be stepping into that we're not yet comprehending?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I have talked with my, much more in tune with the industry friends about like what's going on with AI. And there's these altruistic questions that, is AI gonna like be a security threat and like attack us? And those are hard questions to answer.
Yeah, Jeffrey Hinton just met with the Senate, raising many alarm bells.
So there's some really good interviews. Jeff Hinton's a great guy. In Montreal, we have this is Yoshi Bengio, and then there's the course I took. I'm trying to remember his name. Anyway, they call them the Godfathers of AI. There's four of them, and the Stanford one, I think it's. I wish I could remember his name. Anyway, him and Jeff Hinton got into a bit of like an online debate at one point. I got to listen to that. I thought it was really cool because Jeff Hinton is very extremist about what's going to happen, and this other gentleman, now I'm more with him, he's more pragmatic about it. And in the interview, Jeff said, he's like, and he admitted, he's like, I'm intentionally being alarmist.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't think this is possible today, but it could be possible one day. And government moves very slowly. And so I have to be excessively alarmist today, and I'm not quoting him directly, it's paraphrasing, today, in order for the government to, like, when the time comes, be ready.
Yes.
And so, they were both in agreement in terms of what AI could do today, but Jeff was looking out much farther than the other gentleman.
So is it fair to say that you have these godfathers of the technology and of this advancing thing that's coming at rapid rates, and they're probably in four different corners of the perspective for where this is going, from catastrophic human ending to this is actually going to be the greatest benefit to humanity?
It could be, yeah, depending on a lot of things. And I mean, there's so many things you can worry about out there. And
we drive cars every day.
We drive cars every day. And, at a certain point, I just kind of decided I'm going to worry. I was very worried about global warming, and I still am. And I spent a lot of time mentoring green companies the last 5 years and trying to help them take early stage kind of university green technology and help them commercialize it. And, I tried to figure out what is my carbon footprint and calculate it. And like, okay, if I become a vegetarian, how much I'm going to save? And like living in Quebec, how much is that saving me because it's green power? And I figured out the only thing I could do personally to really reduce my carbon footprint is never get on a plane ever again. Because that is probably in my personal carbon footprint, something like 50 to 80% of it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, do I want to do that? It's a hard question.
That leads to the irony of you're in Montreal and we're sitting in Olds, Alberta, and that is one hell of a drive.
It's it would be a long drive, yeah. And I don't know that I would save much gas either versus the plane, but yeah. So I kind of like was like, okay, I went way down that rabbit hole, and I was like, you know what, this is kind of up to the governments to decide, and it's not something that I have an ability to directly influence. And so I'll let these groups, like as a part of business, if I do that and everyone else is not doing it, then my business is not going to work, and therefore I have no impact.
Yeah.
Right. So as much as I can be passionate about green technology, if everyone else is not doing it, then I'm not competitive. And like one of the technology we did adopt at our root facility was extremely green. We saved a lot of energy as part of deploying that. And the reason it worked well for us is because saving energy also helped save money. So they worked really well together, and it helped us build a valuable business. And that's why a lot of data centers have adopted similar technologies over the years, is because being green is green. So anyway, so I'm off track.
No, that's actually directly on track. So then that leads to the point where now you're here. How do you find, you are a busy boy, how do you find Olds, Alberta on the map?
Yeah, how do we find Olds, Alberta? Step one was calling up my friends at Hydro Quebec and saying, hey guys, do you have any nice green power for me to build a 1 gigawatt data center?
How hard did they laugh?
Yeah, they laughed pretty good. And they're like, nope.
This is not happening.
like never. Like he's like, we're looking up to 2035 and there's nothing that's coming for you before 2035. And then I was like, okay, like how much do you guys got? And they're like, well, you can put your name in a hat, and we don't even know if we have any power, so maybe we'll pick your name out of the hat, maybe we won't. I'm being a little facetious and simplifying, but that's kind of like,
It's the way it goes with.
yeah, there's just not a lot of power available in Quebec right now. Part of it is like they pick projects that they want power to go to that have higher economic benefit, and they wanted to focus on the green supply chain in Quebec, which may or may not have been the right decision given some of the things that have happened in the province of late for that. But yeah.
And so from a no happening there to 2035, which by then the technology is going to be completely
Yeah, you can. If you can tell me what's going to happen in 2035, then and you do that.
We will all be very rich. Yeah, I can tell what's happening then. So with that in mind, how do you then skip over multiple provinces and land in Alberta?
Yeah. So as part of that, I also said, okay, there's no hydroelectric power. Maybe there's thermal power. Like maybe there's natural gas available. So I called all the pipelines, Enbridge and CC Energy and a bunch of pipelines. Said, hey guys, where can we get gas? And they're like, yeah, like I told them how much I need, and like Enbridge laughed at me. They're like, ha, that's like 15% of our gas. You're not getting that from us. And Quebec tried, and they tried to find some gas, and then maybe we can get you a quarter of that. And then they came back later and they said, no, we probably can't. So so it became kind of apparent across Canada. And Quebec's a very big power producer. We have nuclear and Ontario and alternative energies, but Quebec and Ontario are the two largest populations. They generate the most amount of power, and they don't have the power. Then no one else is going to have it. I can't get gas anywhere because of pipeline issue. So you have to go to the source. Yeah.
And Alberta makes the most sense. And they've also reached out to people saying we're open for that kind of business. So in all of Alberta, given the birth of it, I haven't even driven north to south in Alberta because it's such a vast province. I have through Ontario, but not Alberta. How does it land between Calgary and Edmonton in a town of just under 10,000 people?
Yeah. There's, you could drill a hole in lots of places in Alberta and natural gas will pop out. Some places you can. And so there's like reserve maps, and there's a lot of reserves up in Grand Prairie, right? And I haven't been to Grand Prairie, but I'm sure it's beautiful. But I was a little bit worried about my ability to convince people that want to work in tech to go to Grand Prairie. So you kind of look at those reserve maps and kind of see, well, Central Alberta has, some parts of Central Alberta still have very good reserves. And so who are the large producing natural gas plants in that area? And and kind of holds its in proximity to those.
So with the proximity of bolts, this one is directly within the township itself. So what's the difference in choice between township and, I mean, we're surrounded by open fields everywhere here?
Yeah. So there's been a few data center projects that are going on right now, and there's a few that have attempted to happen in the province. And so as we were kind of doing our research, we looked at one specific one, the Rocky View Technology Park data center one, which just kind of, as I was kind of, I think it was actually before, I started my idea in like early November of 2025. But yeah, I was doing research. The Rocky View Technology Park was shot down as a project. And I kind of like read through all the documents, called one of the council members, like, what happened? Because I was one of the areas that was also interested in as well. And the council was like, yeah, we want data centers, but just not in farm fields. I was like, okay. Where do you want the data centers in your county? Show me. And they pointed some spots. I'm like, and I didn't say this to them. I'm like, it's nice that you want data centers there, but if you're unhappy with this field in Olds, you would have been very unhappy with where the councillor suggested I put the data centers in there. So I was like, okay, Blackview wants data centers, but doesn't quite understand where they need to live. So when they're a big county, a big municipality.
Yeah.
It's going to take many, many months, many years to try to develop a site that would make sense. So, then we called other counties, kind of in the area, and said, what's level of interest. We did speak with actually Mountain View directly, the council there. So I thought, hey, maybe the nice industrial park at the corner of 27 and 2 would be an interesting spot. And I'm not a farmer. My father grew up on a farm and for dairy, and they did cash crops. So
very normal in Ottawa.
Yeah, right. And so I was like, hey, there's like dirt side of the highway, and you've got an industrial park. Like, looks like would be a good spot. And the county kind of helped me understand the difference in kind of value of different types of land in the province in class 1 and different classes of land. And that area has a lot of very high value agricultural land. So the county, as part of the development plan, did not want data centers on that area because it seemed like a good spot, right? Because of the highway, decided to exist in industrial park. Yeah. That might be in this location.
And I think in terms of that, you probably would have had 100% less pushback from the town of Olds.
From the town of Olds, probably, yes. Yeah. But then different type of pushback, similar to what,
You'd have a different collection of people pushing.
Yeah, different type, right? And so there's, Rocky View would have been a similar situation probably to Rocky View in terms of pushback, in terms of protection of agricultural land, which is very important. So it's kind of looking at all these different pieces where is there an opportunity to put a data center in the province? Because the province has, I think, made it fairly clear that they would like data centers to be here. And they would like us for your own power. And rightfully so, that we don't want to impact the hydroelectric grid in the province. And we learned the wrong way to do it in the US in terms of letting the data centers suck up the power and push up prices for consumers. That's not the right way to build data centers.
In my completely limited understanding, which I'm sure you completely understand, isn't there a limited amount of wattage that they're making accessible annually for new builds? Like 1,200 megawatts or something? 14?
Oh, sorry, in
Alberta?
Yes, yeah, they did. And they had like the AESO, whatever it is. They did an allocation recently. It was before, I think it happened just before it started the project, but I remember seeing it in my research. Yeah. That they had allocated to 2 projects, 1.2 gigawatts. I think one got 900 and one got 300, roughly.
And somebody just sold their megawatts.
I saw that. I noticed that. Right.
$18 million.
Small $1 million. They bought, they flipped their megawatts, right? Yeah. But I mean, Alberta, the province of Alberta looked at how much can we allocate to data centers, and they kicked an amount. And
We've been known to have brownouts, really cold days.
yeah. So I mean, I mean, our data center is not going to contribute to any of those problems, and that was, I think a smart ask from the province to ask for that. But yeah, so in terms of, I think we're talking about site selection.
Yeah.
There's, we didn't want to adversely impact agricultural land. Also I would say we looked at like, are there industrial parks, like full on industrial parks in kind of, proximity to Calgary, reasonable distance to an international airport. I was unable to find, I don't want to say there are none absolutely, but like I did look. I didn't find any ones that had, 300 acres of like land in the middle of an industrial.
A brown land.
A brown land in the middle of an industrial park. Like they're just not simply big enough. Like finding 8 or 10 acres, like what we had for our smaller 50 megawatt site, was possible back in Montreal, but you needed a much bigger footprint.
So is this like a random phone call on a random day to the township?
Yeah, so we
Hi, surprise!
No, we approached a number of counties and municipalities, and we said, is there interest? And a lot of townships did annex in land into the townships. I think it was a lot of them did in 24. I don't want to speak improperly there, but it seems like there was a trend of like annexing land into townships at a certain point. So, we kind of decided the best place to put a data center was in an area that was already slated for future use of an industrial space. And, I would say in addition to that, the town of Olds had been kind of, I think, looking at data center projects for a while and had already incorporated into some of their bylaw related things the ability to support data centers, is my understanding. To be honest, I'm not dark super deep into that that item, but that's my understanding. So yeah, so that's kind of how we ended up in the area that we selected. And I mean, the wind also blows predominantly from southwest through to northeast. So and bunch of different directions as well, but like it doesn't blow as much from the southeast to the northeast to the southwest.
You're trying to figure out where we
From
are.
the up high to over here, yeah. So picking land that was annexed into a township for industrial in that type of section of town was as well.
So when you're talking to a town, any town, about these details, are they presenting the pushback or the concerns that they're going to feel from their residents? Or is it genuinely just talking about the land itself and the function structure of what's happening?
Yeah. We talk about a whole bunch of things. And I think like for everybody building a facility of this size, I mean, I don't say for everybody. Everyone within the last 3 years building a facility of this size is a new experience, right? Now we do have some people that have built ahead of us in the US that we can look to for example of what to do and also what not to do.
Yeah.
For these facilities. And
Like
so
probably don't put a Bitcoin one right outside somebody's house.
yeah, probably
Seem
not.
to have more volume.
Probably not a great idea. Yeah, there's like lots of, and I mean, I've been certainly reading more about sound attenuation and emissions offsetting and things like that than I would have expected before. But yeah, so
the town was receptive to it. Did
Yeah,
they
they-
raise concerns about proximity and location and housing? Speaking of,
and speaking, yeah,
our town is not known for its large availability for rentals or purchasable homes.
yeah. I mean, housing is tough to. And I'm not like a housing expert, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like what I read. And there's a lot of things I'm an expert at building data centers. There's a lot of things I'm not an expert. I'm not a noise expert, not a health expert. I'm not a housing expert, right? So
Well, by default, now you're kind of thrown into all those industries simultaneously.
I've thrown into it and people want answers on, all of these things. And I try to speak to them as best I can, but I like to kind of preface all of that with like, I'm not an expert, right? So I lean on experts for their opinion, and I try to understand, what they're saying at the surface, and I trust in their opinion. Yeah, but in terms of housing, I think Olds has identified certain areas for housing growth, and there's an opportunity to build houses there, but they don't currently exist, right? So, yeah.
And in comparison, so for what you're dealing with, you are putting a data center in a location that is directly across from a bunch of homes. Was that a concern for you? I know you don't have personal worry particularly, but do you have other individuals from government and municipal government who are going, oh, is this going to be a problem? Or does this now not matter because it's brown land, not
So
agricultural?
So making sure the zoning was right is an important part of it, right? There's not, obviously there's many pieces that go into, data center site selection and build, and thousands and thousands. I can't build a spreadsheet that's gonna like matrix it all together.
Yeah.
So picking a site, and then it's like, okay, if you're gonna put it in this location, can you comply with the regulations that are set forth for building a facility, right? And then what are those regulations? And so, the AUC talks about what they want for noise. The Alberta Environment Protection Agency, I think I got that right, the AEPA, talks about what they want for emissions, right? And then there's a whole bunch of other things, but those are kind of the two for data centers. Those are the two that I've focused on: groundwater management, groundwater runoff, biology, species protection, whole bunch of other items. But for people health directly, when I look for data centers, those are kind of the two items that focused in on. And and so it's like, okay, engineers, let's look to see, can we comply with those things, right? Can we build this safely? Because the government has said these are the safe thresholds for people. And so can we do that?
Well, the zoning kind of becomes an interesting point for people with the municipality, is that the zoning got moved from commercial to light industrial.
Right.
And that made perfect sense. I mean, we were either going to end up with a Costco there, or we were going to end up with something a little bit more functional, like a warehouse and welding facilities, things of that nature. So light industrial for a small data center, like the 5 megawatt or even a 50 megawatt, feels a little bit more normal. But the scale of what we're talking about for your project, how big is a gigawatt?
Yeah.
For all the people who don't speak in that language, what is this difference from 50 megawatts to 1 gigawatt?
Oh, well, the 50 megawatts to 1 gigawatt is 20 times difference, yes.
Small number.
Just a small number. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, so it's a big jump, right? And then it's like, how do you bridge the gap in terms of that size, right? And how do you not make mistakes when you go from 50 megawatts to a gigawatt, right?
Yeah.
And so
I mean, I already get it wrong on muffin recipes.
Right,
I have to Ireland triple. So
Yeah,
we're talking
that's
a
it.
lot more complexity here.
Yeah. So with that, and it's like I sometimes have a tendency to oversimplify it, but it also helps me in terms of making problems manageable or making challenges manageable, right? And so going from 50 to a gigawatt, it's like, okay, how do we solve for that? How do we not make these mistakes? And so one of the nice things about data centers is they're highly modular, right? And so it's not like, I'm drawing lines around in a circle and every piece is different. It's it's copy paste a lot of the time, right? So the design that we used at our facility in Montreal, we had a 3 megawatt UPS room feeding, 3 megawatt,
Break down what's UPS.
Oh, UPS is...
I know I'm hyper simplifying. Does this help?
Uninterruptible power supply. Okay. So when, if the power goes off in the house here, everything will go off except your computer will make it stay running because it's got a battery system in it, right? And so even if it's plugged in, it'll keep going. Similar concept, just bigger system, right? It's basically a battery bank with a rectifier and inverter on it, and so power goes through it, and then it's watching to make sure the power is stable, and if it's not stable, it switches over to battery, and the servers keep running.
So can we go back to a basic component? What are the structures of how power works within these facilities?
Okay.
Because you tossed in a middle piece.
Yeah. So I get where you're going is how do we go from 50 to a gigawatt, right?
Yeah. And how do you what powers a data center? Because for all of us with computers, we plug into our wall. The grid sorts itself out. We just have to make sure our breakers are working on our fuse box.
Yep.
I'm sure you're not plugging in your data center into a wall.
Well, not into the wall, no. Yeah. But with the modular data center footprint, so we've got, UPS rooms that are similarly sized to the ones that are here, cooling systems that are similarly sized for the module, right? And then we just are multiplying that module a bunch of times. So that part of the design has been tested. Not tested, but I've worked on those designs personally before, and they're very comparable to designs that would be occurring in other facilities in the industry. And there's like us, nerdy engineers, we talk about like, are you using the capture system? Are you using like, how many lineups are you using? And it's like, we kind of all geek out about like, what is the best design? But it's like within kind of this circle of like design sphere, and we all have our different flavors that we prefer, but it's like fairly standardized at this point in the industry. So, so like, yes, it's bigger, but that multiplication is just multiplication of the same thing over and over.
So you're looking for repeatable patterns within what you're building. So the engineering is a core base engineering.
Yeah.
And then you're
Just
duplicate.
copy paste a bunch of
Okay.
things. Yeah.
So what's involved in the copy paste? Because we've got servers, we've got the computer elements.
Yeah, so you design like a box which
Yeah.
has like the servers, the EPS room, the cooling systems, the generators, and you just take that box and go copy paste. And like, do you want to copy it 1 time or 5 times or?
Okay, so if we take a core one
Yep.
to help people understand fully, and me, if we take a small box and we're saying what would be the goal for a core box, if you're talking one,
Yeah.
is that 50 megawatts that you're trying to build, or are you looking at 10?
So yeah, each of those boxes would have 10 megawatts of capacity for the servers.
Okay.
Yeah, so we call it critical load or critical bulk capacity. And that's like the servers, when our clients are saying like, we want to put servers in the room, how much power can you give us for those servers? 10 megawatts.
Okay. And so within that, how does it all function? How does it get power? How does it operate?
So you have cooling systems.
Yeah.
That are running, which are air-cooled chillers in this situation. You have your power supply, which used to be, hydrocobac for me, but is now a natural gas pipe, which I built a few in the province before. So
It's a small skill we have here.
yeah.
Small skill.
So you have the natural gas pipe providing utility, what is effectively going to utility reliability power to the site, and then we have the UPS systems that are fed. So you kind of got your utility power or natural gas plant feeding an ATS. That ATS also feeds a generator. So we lose power over here. The generators turn on, the emergency generators. That feeds the UPS. That then goes out to the servers.
Okay, and the UPS is the battery bank.
UPS is the battery bank. Exactly.
Okay.
So like the transfer, if we lose...
Are you using Duracell alkaline batteries like I use in my phone?
No, they'd be lithium ion in this case.
Yeah.
LRA or lithium ion is typically used in data centers.
Okay.
More commonly now is lithium ion.
Is that just normal industry standard or specialized for this project?
No, normal industry standard. Most people are using lithium ion now, is my understanding. Some people are maybe still using the LRA.
Okay.
The LRA is like what you would have in your car.
Okay.
Lithium ion is what you have in your computer.
And thank you for putting up with my dumb questions.
No, these are great questions. These are great. But yeah, one's in your car, one's in your computer.
Okay, so once you've got all of the power generated and the servers are activated,
Yeah.
what are you looking at servicing within this data center? What is the goal? Who are the anchor tenants?
Yeah, so it was going to go into this data center. So it's generally, when you're building for this size, it's most likely going to be one of the top 4 or 5 largest technology companies in the world. You could have, Government of Canada or like a big bank or something maybe asking for 100 megawatts or 200 megawatts. It would be unlikely that that type of customer would ask for.
Does that increase as banks are discussing moving into digital currency?
Oh, I don't know. I can admit to that one. I'm not sure if digital currency would affect this or not. It's possible. Yeah.
So when you come up with an idea, I mean, it has to come from somewhere, nowhere of I've built this before successfully. Let's go for 1 gigawatt.
Yeah.
What is that thought process that goes to that scale? Because it is 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's the form factor that people are asking for, these large hyperscale customers. That's what they would like to be able to purchase.
So you saw a market need
Yes.
and we're trying to get a market solution.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with that,
People want the red car.
yeah.
They don't want the green car.
Yeah.
If you don't want the red car, they don't want to buy it. So
So that is what will suffice for the actual anchor tenants to want to come into it.
correct.
Is this something that separates across Canada and the United States? I understand very limited that there's data that has to remain within Canada.
Yeah, and so I mean, if you listen, there has been more recently a push for Canadian AI sovereignty, right?
I think Nate Glubish had talked about that as well.
Nate has, I believe Carney has talked about it as well. And part of this is like, part of why I want to do this in Canada, because I could do this in the US, and I've been encouraged to do in the US by these large customers because they would prefer I be there, but I would prefer that they come to Canada, because I think, from an economic benefit, if these are going to get built, I'd rather be built in Canada so that we're using ChatGPT, we're using these services. Why shouldn't they be in Canada as part of our use, right? So, yeah. This is where we're talking about AI sovereignty, or
So in terms of scaling up to that, what you're doing is meeting that gap need for it and trying to provide that within the Canadian market, because Canada doesn't have the same competition of data centers as the States has at this point in time.
Yeah.
They're all over the States. Actually, they're all over the world. I had a friend recently in Spain who was like, I was driving down this beautiful highway with fields, and suddenly I went, oh, there's a data center there.
Yes.
So it's worldwide, this phenomenon that's happening. So in the scaling up to 1 gigawatt, are you having to have pre-conversations with them to make sure they're willing to come to Canada, especially with the conflicts that have been happening?
Yeah, we've talked with them for sure. There's definitely interest in being here. I've chatted with all of them at this point.
Is this a touch of if you build it, they will come?
No, I mean, we wouldn't build it without them being signed up as a customer. $10 billion, you can't really go to a bank and say like, hey guys.
It's not your piggy bank?
Yeah, it's not your piggy bank. Can you just give me...
A bigger slanted roof?
Yeah. So they don't want that. They want to see that, there's an ability for us to repay them. Similar to like when you get a mortgage on your house, they want you to add the job, and that's when they'll lend you money, and they want to see that there's an asset there, right? So, very similar process in terms of how this gets funded, and part of that process is having a tenant for the house. So
Yeah. So as you're going through this process, you've just navigated conversation with the town about location and zoning and what's accessible to purchase and then utilize. Now you've just engaged with the AUC process, which for most people who don't understand, it's the Alberta Utilities Commission. And I had never heard any of these acronyms until a few weeks ago. So everyone's in this crash course of tossing around acronyms at mass scale. Thank you for breaking down acronyms for the people who don't speak in those languages. The Alberta Utilities Commission just ensures that all of the checks are done to the boxes that are important and vital to industrial growth.
Correct.
And in your case, they closed it as they do with everyone without prejudice, because if they were prejudiced, they wouldn't be a good regulatory body.
Right.
They left it open for you to reapply.
Yes.
What was the process for you like having it closed? Was that expected? One of the hiccups in the road?
yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't expected. I would say, like, in working with the AUC, they take their role as a regulator extremely seriously in protecting public interests. And so, they will, and same with the APA, they'll consult with us ahead of the application and the submission. But once it's submitted, it's kind of like, you got your thing in and we're going to analyze it. Right? So, yeah, no, we were not aware that there was going to be a closure that was going to happen of the file. And I think, in that closure letter, there was a lot of great feedback inputs from them. And so, we've been spending the last few weeks going through that and making sure they're all addressed. And we have done like our pre-consultation meetings with them, and it seems like everything is in order at this point. If we wanted to resubmit, then we could.
Are they easy to navigate communication with back and forth? Because my understanding is the province is really eager for data thinkers to come into Alberta. Totally beneficial for the economy. It's also data sovereignty, which has now come into greater question with the war happening in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Greater and greater questions as to where do we store it? How do we protect it? How do we utilize it more effectively? My understanding is the provincial government hands off the process to the AUC as they will have the final say as to if this is a benefit or a detriment.
Yeah.
So it's a due diligence process.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Like, I do know the AUC, and I'm not an expert in the AUC process.
I don't think anybody is.
I've read their documents that describe it in length many times, but there's a lot of words there. And so, yeah, the AUC, my understanding is they look at both, what is the output of the facility, and then what is the as you described, right? And they kind of weigh those two together as part of deciding, should the project move forward or not. Yeah. And then I think they kind of seem to have a lot of authority over, various elements in terms of approval. Like, I think they even have an ability, like if they haven't approved the project, I don't think the ADPA is allowed to approve the project, as an example. So
It's like a set of dominoes.
it seems that way. Yeah.
One comes to the next.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, I mean, the AUC, they're not, they're regulated by legislation. They don't sit under a minister, right? So they're a little bit more autonomous in their ability to operate. And yeah.
And what are the requirements that they have in terms of, I've heard so many different ones. Is it noise impact assessment and
Yeah, so my understanding is
pollution?
for the data center, we submitted Rule 7 to them, which was our application. And we had to submit that because of Rule 12, which is related to noise.
Okay.
So my understanding is they manage the data center application in the plant, and it was submitted not because of the data center, it's submitted because of the plant. And so there's like a little bit of like grayness in terms of, does the AUC have authority over the data center or just the plant? But because the data center does create some noise as well as the plant, then like our models do look at both what is the data center and plant outputting, because they sit beside each other. But if like we weren't building a plant, would we even need to go through this process? That's unclear.
And people have pretty common understanding in Alberta about the sound of gas plants.
Yes.
We've got one south of town by a few kilometers. So it's a normal assumed thing within this province, which is not necessarily at all the case for any other province in Canada. It just so happens that we have fantastic quantities of oil to pull up here.
Yeah.
People have a comprehension of gas plants, which is stacks, production, equipment, all of those functions. When it comes to data centers, there's less of a comprehension of the overlap there, but typically are data centers built alongside gas plants in Canada, or is this going to be one of the few that begins this process?
Yeah, this would be a new thing for Canada. I mean, they're connected to gas plants through the utility system, right? But not directly beside.
But that would be substation transmission
Yeah, exactly.
sources at gas
Yeah,
plants.
exactly. Yeah.
So how big does this gas plant have to be for 1 gigawatt, which is, am I wrong? Is it 1,000 megawatts is 1 gigawatt?
That's yes, correct. Okay. Yeah, and the gas plant is 1.4 gigawatts is what we've sized it to. So when we say gigawatt for the data center, that's what the consumer that's buying from us is able to purchase, and we need the extra power for the cooling systems, for the UPS systems, for like energy loss in the building.
So your model of the 10 megawatts that you're then scaling up, you're going to do 100 of those
Correct.
to produce the 1 gigawatt.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to span what space-wise for people's comprehension? Is there even a building that you can compare in Canada?
So each of the buildings is 230,000 square feet
Okay.
in this type of house. So the building, yeah, there are lots of buildings that are 230,000 square feet. Actually, if you want to use comparison, I think the one in Montreal that we had was 160,000 square feet.
Okay.
So it's not a 200,000 square foot building is not unusually, I mean, it's a big,
Yeah.
but there are other.
But you're multiplying it.
Yeah, but we're multiplying that. There's some more.
Okay. So for your breakdown for simplicity and the way that you seem to work most effectively, you're thinking in the context of that scale
Yeah.
and then just multiplying it hours. So with the need for the gas plants and need for the generators, my understanding is it's going to be 600 generators required.
Yeah, emergency generators. And that's one of the things actually we're talking to the AUC are the emergency generators are backup, and they serve the same purpose. There's like a semantic kind of determination as an emergency or backup. But I'll call them emergency because that's what we call them in the industry. So so there's 600 emergency generators.
And is it wrong or right that people are saying that there's a percentage of the year where you can't access gas? Like, do they turn it off? What's the...
Yeah, so we are buying gas directly from local power producers. And so like when we talk about economic benefit, there's job creation, the project will bring both, full-time and construction work. There's, the residual that will create for hospitality and other employment in the area.
Which I assume is specialty construction work, because I know that most local carpenters were probably not putting up steel beams.
Well, yes, you're right. A carpenter that would do woodwork in a home would not, let's say we'll have, kitchen cabinets in there, right? So we actually talked with like a local kitchen cabinet manufacturer that I met.
For the lunchroom.
For the lunchroom, yeah. I was like, can you build like one of these a month? And she's like, yeah, maybe if you had enough notice. I was like, that's great. So we've got like, But so the gas, the way that we're buying it is directly from producers, not from TC Energy. And as part of that, the gas guys are like, yeah, we'll sell to you, but like we want, more than we get from TC Energy, right? I was like, yeah, that's fair. So we'll pay them more.
Is that impacted by what's happening in the Middle East and the cost increase at this point?
I've been so busy.
You don't want to look up for this?
I haven't been watching too much. I did see what happened to the price of oil, and I think natural gas prices didn't move as much, but I haven't looked in like the last week, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, like our prices that we would negotiate with them, the contract still like all the economic stuff needs to be like locked in, but the concept is natural gas prices go up, we pay more. And so the local producers are just going to basically get a premium to what they could sell their gas at. And, when you're running a business in the oil and gas industry, like, having an extra $5 or $10 million or whatever the number is going to be going to your plant, it may actually be way more of that given the volume that we're purchasing, can go into much needed things like upgrades to the plants that the team has been asking for many years. And, maybe expansion, maybe new drilling programs. I don't get to make the decision for these businesses, but I do know when you have one unit of your business that's more profitable than other units, you tend to want to invest into that area. And what we're helping do with these local gas plants is make those specific buildings that are near olds more profitable than hopefully more profitable than other centers.
So when it comes to the process of these timelines where they don't provide it for these percentages throughout the year, am I wrong that it's up to 88 days? If it's 1% of the year?
Hours.
Sorry, not days.
Hours.
I
did know that one.
That's a long one. Yeah, up to 1% is 88 hours.
Okay.
Now, we want to drive that number down as much as possible because we don't want to be on generators. They're emergency generators. We don't want the natural gas supply to turn off, right? So we're connecting to multiple natural gas plants. So, the situation where day one, the natural gas goes off is like, someone takes a backhoe and, breaks the pipe like that would.
Which if you have good inflays, they shouldn't do that, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know, right? So we don't want that to happen, but that's like a risk, right? When you have one pipe coming in, the pipe gets severed. And they did ask people that build pipeline and like, how often do new pipes break? And like, it kind of chuckled and they're like, They don't. Like, you get 40-year-old pipes that are breaking, but like you don't get, brand new pipes that are breaking, right? But it is a risk.
But when something like that happens, so how often, if it's needed, are all 600 generators going to have to be turned on in order to facilitate the quantity of power needed?
Yeah. So our permit for the 80 kA side, which regulates the emissions, and we still have to figure out what the AUC wants because emergency backup, well, the use is going to be the same. The way it's defined for them is different. They allow for maximum 1%. So above that, we don't get to run them anymore. The facility has to go off. And that's something I have to tell my customers is like, we can't run more. So I have to be very careful in the way that our team designs the facility because if we go above that number, I'd probably lose my job.
Yeah.
Because my customers are not going to be happy with the data center going dark, right?
Yeah, the four big ones don't like that.
They don't like that.
Okay.
No. So I have to convince them, not just the government, that we can do that, right? Because that's part of our permit. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's,
So that's a hard
1% is 88 hours, not days.
88 hours, correct.
Okay.
1%, 88
But the volume of 600 diesel generators
Yeah.
for 88 hours is going to be quite significant. And I only say that because I've been to enough job sites where they have 2 or 3 generators running. And it's
Yeah.
600's a lot.
They can be loud. They
Yeah.
can be loud. Just like if you put your head right beside a turbine, it can also be very loud.
Yeah.
Actually louder than a generator,
Yeah.
but it's probably similar actually, and they're both really loud. Like when we toured the plant east of Calgary, the Shepherd plant, which is a beautiful natural gas facility. We had to put earplugs inside of the plant because it was 85 or so dB. I think that's the limit. I think 85 dB is like the threshold. Above that, you can have hearing damage.
Yeah.
which I think concerts are like 100 dB sometimes. So
Trade, but you're not supposed to stand in front of the speaker.
Right in front of the
because
speaker,
it's
okay.
just first. It's
Okay.
how do you go to the EDM concerts and you stand right in front?
That's
That you
bad.
guaranteed have very.
that's when you're next day. You're like, I didn't hear you.
That's why they love the concerts. They don't know what they're hearing and they know what they're losing on it.
Yes.
But
So-
with that,
Yeah. So they can be loud.
Yeah.
They can be loud. But there are ways to manage the noise, right? Like if you have the speaker on in here, you bring it outside, you're going to hear it, less loudly, obviously, right? And so, so in terms of generators, they can be loud, just like turbines inside the plant can be loud. But it's like what you put around them and how do you mitigate that sound, will impact the actual noise at what the AUC looks for, the noise at receptors, they call them, which are people's homes.
and the APA is looking at the emissions of the diesel.
And they're looking at the emissions.
Okay.
I mean, it's unclear. The AUC seems to also look at it that what they're approving is the sound part.
Yeah.
It's my understanding. But they seem to look at much more than the sound, but I think the approval is on the sound and the AKA's approval is on the emissions.
And how much of this is infrasound, which is inaudible sound, versus audible sound? Because that's a common issue that happens with gas plants and multiple large industrial buildings.
Yeah.
And it's anything that's below 20 dB. Our ears don't hear. Our dogs all hear it. Our
Okay.
cats all hear it.
Yeah.
But that's diesel generators produce infrasound. Gas plants produce infrasound.
Okay.
Construction trucks, we hear an audible sound, but also there's a vibration that occurs.
Yep.
And when you hit a certain threshold of frequency, you can inaudibly be hearing 120 dB if it's below 20 hertz.
Yep.
If I'm not saying that wrong, and then my husband tells me off, then what happens is you feel it within your body.
Yeah.
And it impacts health, sleep, all of those things. And it's something that I genuinely don't think has been considered on scale, but it's going to have to be considered because these data plants have to be built. It's necessity that we continue to grow and progress within reasonable capacity, unless Elon sticks them in outer space. Which,
Right. Different type of
what world are we living in? So with that in mind, that becomes probably one of the greatest concerns that I've heard from people is the audible sound, even if it's all mitigated, infrasound isn't inhibited by walls. It seems to amplify further from the point of origin across many kilometers.
Yeah.
Which is why I think in terms of residents and homes, you'd have had a few farmers mad out there, and then you'd have had the pushback on agricultural issues. But in town, you're getting pushback on people, and I know you've been navigating those conversations.
Yeah. Definitely been talking with a lot of people. Certainly around sound. As I prefaced, I'm not a sound expert. And so I've been kind of like, doing a lot of VA, as have many people around, sound. And
You're doing a crash course in this too.
yeah, crash course. And I talked to my experts about this, and I've talked with them about like low frequency noise, and I would say actually, and I went to visit somebody that has a sound offsetting product that will cancel out frequencies, and they're actually based here in Alberta. So I was kind of checking that out, and I would say I noticed and they ran through different frequencies for me at different decibel levels, which was kind of interesting.
Did you ever think you'd have to learn that stuff?
No, I did not. But it's a very important item. It's a very important item. So I am trying to make sure I fully understand it, and talking with friends about this in the US as well, about build these big facilities and understanding what's going on there. And I will say, in terms of low frequency noise, I did notice when I stood in front of the speaker when it was at 60 to 65 dB, and the frequency was and they call it low frequency noise below 200 hertz, and maybe there's different definitions. Maybe it may be 20, or maybe different things that happen in different frequencies. But
That's where it, I believe, becomes just completely inaudible to the human.
is that what it is? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I stood in front of it at sub 200 hertz. I don't remember the exact hertz at 65 dB. And I actually, you talked about, I could actually feel a tenseness in my body. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't expect that. And then I was like, can you drop that down? Start dialing down the dB level.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what? And then it stopped. At a certain point, as they were dialing down the dB level, it stopped. And I was like, what dB is this at? And it was at 53-ish dB. It's like, okay. And then I'm like, can you bring it down to 40, which is what we need to be at roughly at the property line to hit, what was that number? 42.5, I think. I don't have the sound report in front of me, but what the sound report says. And I knew it's below 55, it's below 50. And so I'm like, can you drop down to like, 40s? Let me see what that feels like. And I couldn't feel anything. Now, everyone is different. Everyone, can feel things differently. Animals can feel things differently. For me personally,
Well, and apparently there's only 25 to 30% of the population that has a sensitivity to low frequency.
it could, yeah.
So lucky for the other.
Maybe at one of them
65.
I did feel something like where I was standing in front of it, right? So
We'll find out your superpowers in this process.
I'll find out, right? Yeah, so but anyway, and this company has a technology that helps offset that. So they can target specific frequencies and build waves that are counter to those frequencies to kind of neutralize them. So I would just talk about that in terms of like, there are many ways to sound mitigate. There are many people that have built these sites in the US before. The AUC has their requirements that we adhere to. So there's a lot of information out there.
Well, and how many of these sites are actually built this close to residentials? Because there's about 2,100 homes within a reasonable zone that
Yeah.
you have laid out.
Yeah. So the zone, that zone is specifically for thermal plants, not for data centers, because I don't think the AUC has like done approvals for a bunch of these in the province yet.
Yeah, you might be on the cutting edge.
We're-
Maybe the first of that.
Right. And so it's like, I think we want to work with everybody and with the AUC to like, what is the right thing that needs to happen here in terms of noise, right? Are there different things?
But do you think the volume, because data centers that are going in different places, we're talking 35 megawatts, 50 megawatts, 80 megawatts. If this is so much bigger, is some of the issues that you'll face like 600 generators versus 10 generators? Do you think it's the scale that also increases the issues?
I mean, when I look at the noise models, there's cumulative around noise, right? But in saying that, if you stand right in front of a chiller, and then you stand 300 meters away from the chiller, you're going to have higher impact from that item than, farther away, right? So in terms of the modules, like...
Well, and we're 300 here, but some people are like 20 feet.
No, I mean,
From like-
I would have to look at I think the nearest person to the front of the data center, which is not where the equipment starts. The equipment is farther back, right? But the nearest person to the front of the data center is maybe like 120 meters.
Okay.
And probably to the equipment it's probably 200. But I'd have to get on my distance measuring thing and like confirm that exact number. But the equipment starts like the front of the building is office space. There's no equipment, BSR equipment, so the equipment doesn't start till a little bit further back. But yeah.
That's an interesting process to have to navigate.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information out there, and part of our job is to make sure that as a professional engineer, and Paul, our VP of Plans, is also a professional engineer, and part of our ethical responsibility is to protect human health and safety. And I wouldn't say if there was anything that I'd seen at this point that would suggest that we could not do this safely, I would ethically, under my professional license, not be allowed to do that. I could lose my license.
Are you having issues at this point too? You're doing a closed water cooling system. Am I saying that right?
Close loop. Yeah.
Closed loop.
Yeah.
So with the closed loop system and the fact that there are multiple data centers being presented for Red Deer and Didsbury as well, does that impact the water draw from the watershed?
I would have to look at the map. We're getting the water from the televolts, which I think draws it from municipal.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what the map is of who is spent by that. So yeah, I don't.
Does that become its own can of worms to have to navigate?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is what we've asked for in terms of water is somewhat reasonable, given like our water figures. And it was kind of originally I thought the staff would use half of the water. Now it's more like the staff is going to use 2/3 of the water, which people use a lot of water. It seems.
You must make up a lot of
I
water.
use 20 liters in my assumption for like water use per person per day on site to develop our number, and then the building code says 90. I'm like, how does one person at work use 90 liters of water? Like, are you taking 4 baths? Like,
Well, and it's not going to be your problem, but the question that we have for the municipal government is there are sewer issues across this entire township that are constantly navigated, and we're like, how many toilets are going to have to flush?
yeah.
And what will happen to our system?
Right. And so with that, I mean, that has been very coordinated with the town, right? So our civil engineers have been informed where to tie in the systems. We have volume flow measurements. There's a lift, I think it's called a lift station, where the domestic waste. Just trying to find the polite word.
There are conversations that have happened in town for years, long before you arrive, that you just get inserted.
Yeah, so they get that gets tied in, right, to the system, which is, I mean, in terms of benefits of location, it's nicer to have that going into a system treated by a municipality than going into a septic system, which if you go farther out, then you go into a septic system. But so we tied in, in terms of water, 2/3 south, 1/3 to the plant. It's not zero, but it is saving hundreds of millions of liters. And in terms of site considerations, when we looked at this location, it's like there's no lakes around here. There's no rivers like right beside the site. Where a lot of the other thermal plants, like Shepherd's built beside a waste treatment facility. Was Genesee used to be it's a converted coal facility, but so they have a big body of water to draw from. I think other ones are on rivers in the province, so they use a lot of water for their open loop cooling systems. And
So with a closed loop cooling system, how often does that have to be, or does it ever have to be changed out? What's the process of that? Is it the bathtub finally gets lukewarm enough or you have to dust it?
So there's been a lot of questions about that. I've never had to purge a glycol system myself. So that is to say they're quite reliable and need to be purged infrequently. And then asked my buddies, I was like, guys, have you ever had to purge one of these? And they're like, almost never. I was like, almost. Okay, what's almost?
What happens when the almost happens?
And they're like, yes, we have had to do it on rare occasion. And I'm like, okay, why does that happen? They're like, when you commission, if you don't commission properly and there's bacteria or other things that get in that the glycol can't properly control, then you sometimes have a problem, and you try to balance that out within the system without having to do a purge, but it is possible enough to. So
when you purge that, I assume you're not attaching a hose and sticking it.
No,
or does
absolutely
it go?
Absolutely. So it goes into a truck and it goes to a proper waste treatment facility, and it's
And I assume we have those in Alberta.
I would assume, but if we don't in Alberta, it's gonna go somewhere where there is one. So we don't have to stop in Alberta if there's nothing that will treat it properly here. So
when you first came up with the concept of I want to participate and be the leader at the forefront of launching this 1 gigawatt, which will be the first in Canada.
Yep, correct.
With that process, did you have any comprehension of all the little in-between things? Because I assume we're barely scratching the surface on common issues that are going to arise in this process. Did you understand the scale of what scaling up would look like?
Yeah, I mean, there are items for sure that I looked at in terms of scaling up. So like supply chain, right? And talking to suppliers before we could commit some tons that we committed to. I needed to make sure we could actually get the equipment. And so you talk to big breaker companies in Canada, and it's like, hey guys, we need this many panels. And they're like, you have 2 extra zeros on there? I'm like, no, it's this many. They're like, okay, can you deliver? They're like, yeah, we can. That's all of Canada's breakers for the year. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah.
Do competitors appreciate that?
Yeah. So they're like, to do this, we would have to build actually, and they're already looking at doing it. So it was convenient timing, but it's we would actually have to build another facility to accommodate this, right? That's an example for breakers, and that creates other jobs, and that's when we talk about residual job numbers and the economic benefit across Canada, not just Alberta. That's one of those items that kind of spins into it because it is a big project.
Are there issues with turbines and sourcing?
Oh, turbines are tough for sure. So turbines were the very first thing that we looked at. Is how do we get turbines? Because they're hard to come by. And I'm not going to say exactly how we're getting turbines, but Paul is a magician and he's done some really cool stuff to make sure that we can get those turbines. So,
So when you say do you have a host of genius minds, all with the different resources available across the board to get this?
Yeah, there's a lot of great people behind the company. People are probably getting tired of seeing me. I have certainly been the most visible, and it's because I would like my team focused on their specific task, which is drive down risk on the engineering side and make sure we don't make mistakes on the engineering side. And it's a hard thing to do to build a project of this size. So there's a lot.
When you're building a project of this size, you said you're in talks with different anchor tenants that would come in and utilize. Are you looking for multiples, or are you looking for a single occupant?
Yeah, I mean, we could accommodate more than one. We would not accommodate more than one in a single build. So I would expect it will be 1, maybe 2 customers.
Okay. So each building is 100 megawatts?
Correct.
So that means you could have possibly 10.
And possibly. I would say that would be very unlikely, but yeah. In terms of the you're good at math, so
Not calculus. Let's give credit with.
But I think it's possible. It's possible up to 10. I would say that would be highly improbable.
Does that become more difficult to manage then?
Not so much. It's just when we look at like what is the purpose of this facility, and who is it servicing? It's meant for those larger. It's meant for those larger customers.
So the stage that you're at this moment, you're going to need to reapply to the AUC to proceed with the plan. And then from the AUC, I assume you have to interact with the AESO, Alberta Electric.
Not that.
So you don't need that.
We're not tying into the grid.
Okay.
Because it's complete energy island. So it's like, how do we build one of the challenges to the team? And they have many challenges, like in terms of how do we not impact people's sleep, and how do we get all the AC regulations?
Please don't impact my sleep.
Right? No, we won't. So in terms of, we're not tying to the AESO, and one of the items, we have 10 natural gas plants. And so as part of achieving that 99%, no more than 1% on emergency generator, you have to have basically grid level reliability. So the team is like working on how do these 10 plants work together for when we need to maintain a turbine. How do we not have to turn on the generators for that?
Yeah.
And that's part of creating like the grid. I don't know what the grid reliability is here, but it's probably like 99.8% or 99.
And then how do you get the actual information out? I know we have ONET in town, which that was its own little
Fiber.
show.
Yeah, fiber. The fiber part is like when you look at the complexity of the project, the fiber part is one of the simpler pieces because you can get a lot of data in like the cable.
So do we have the sufficient amount in town? Or
The main fiber line for the province runs up Highway 2.
Oh, so you'll tie into that easily.
It's close enough that shouldn't be difficult to get to.
So the town will melt down.
No, the town fiber, your internet speeds will not slow down as part of this.
They're already not good. Let's put it that way.
Maybe we can help, all right? Maybe we'll bring some more fiber into town and
Not a
it
pretty
will
scene.
it'll improve the internet.
We're currently on data because of it.
Okay. I don't want to say that we're going to help with that, but there'll be more fiber in town.
Okay.
Generally, and when we pull these big lines in, there's more data to go around generally, but.
So with the scale of the project and all of these different steps in place, if for any reason, due to state of the world, economic upheaval, questions about data center longevity, because you have a 100-year centennial goal with it,
Yeah,
which I don't even think my house got it here.
the steel frame metal insulated panel building, that structure has like a 100-year life expectancy. Right? The concrete steel frame, properly protected, lasts a very long time.
But the interior components, like the chips are only.
Yeah, so we do. No, those get swapped. So their customers will swap out their equipment.
Yeah.
And in various intervals. The generators, turbines, generally life expectancy is 25 years. Now, like turbines, people do sometimes retrofits, right? So like Paul has actually done a lot of work with retrofitting generators and turbines in the past.
Chiller lifespan?
Chiller says about 20, 25 years as well. UPS is sometimes less, sometimes like 10, 20 years. So when we design these facilities, it's all designed. So like part of the modular element is like chiller needs to be replaced.
Chillers.
Crane, takes it off, drops in a new one. The pipes are a 40-year life expectancy, right? So we think about all these things. Okay, when that chiller needs to be upgraded, how do we access it? We don't want to have to bring it down the aisle with all the servers. It needs to be in a spot that we can easily replace it in. So that like kind of that operational upgrade is incorporated into the designs of data centers. Because before it didn't used to be. Like when I started in 2008, 2009, we didn't design them this way. But then people realized, oh shit,
Favorite words.
we have to get this AC unit out of here, and it's not going to be able to get down that freight elevator. So like, what do we do? How do we get a new one in? So
for the interior decommissioning process,
Yep.
Which I didn't even know was a thing.
Yeah.
But a decommissioning process is basically where if the building is no longer utilized for its function, how does it get retrofitted and adjusted? How does that stuff get removed and handled correctly? Because I assume we don't want any degrading components exposed to weather if the frame is still there, but the interior is destroyed.
Yeah. So, I mean, the AUC and the AK, and I don't know who's responsible for this, but I do know that we need to, there's like reclamation guarantees and stuff like that. And so part of that process, people will determine how we need to set aside securities for reclamation. And that could be, my understanding, again, not an expert in this, but my understanding sometimes with thermal plants, they are allowed to pay for that out of their operating kind of proceeds. Sometimes people want letters of credit set aside. And that dollar amount gets determined as part of that process as well. That's specifically for the plant. I don't know what people are going to ask for the data center.
Yeah.
To me, the data center, it's an industrial shell. If for some reason we all stopped using the internet and we didn't need data centers anymore, you could...
Or if chips literally became nanobots.
Oh, they became nanobots, right? You could strip out everything that's in there, put manufacturing in there, do logistics, transportation in there. There's a bunch of purposes. Put a shopping mall if you wanted to put a shopping mall. Maybe that seems like a weird one to go in there, but
That would be
it's a long building with panels around the outside, and you can fit up the interior basically 25-foot height ceiling limitation, 23-foot height ceiling limitation. You can fit up the building into anything that could go in there.
So what are your thoughts on the people who say that at this moment that we're in an AI bubble with data centers and the scale and the usage of them?
Yeah.
If you're going to be the first in Canada and not the last, if they continue to go with large gigawatts, what are your concepts on this bubble perception?
Yeah. So, I wish I was great at predicting bubbles and bubbles bursting.
We'd all also be very rich if we did that.
That is it, right? So what I look at for that and what the banks look at is the quality of the customer signing the contract with us and the duration of that contract. And so the banks don't want to give us $8 to $10 billion if they think there's a risk that they're not going to get their money back from these customers. So if you're different businesses in the retail space where you're building a factory to service a retail customer that you're not contracted with, you're projecting what that demand is going to be. In our situation, that demand is agreed upon in advance and guaranteed by, one of the top 4 or 5 largest technology companies in the world. So it's not to say that there was no risk. There's always a risk that Microsoft or Google or Facebook or Amazon goes bankrupt.
Weirder things have happened.
So there's always that risk. But
That'll be an interesting thing to see.
that would be an interesting thing to see.
So as you're going through the next stage of the AUC process, that will have to happen again because of the gas plant necessity for the data center. Do you have to have those the companies invested in it at that point, or are you waiting to see how the permitting process goes and how the province handles that?
Yeah, I would say that's in flux, right? So if a customer comes to us and says, hey guys, we love your AUC application. We think for sure they're going to pass this and they want to, sign a contract with us right away. Then we're not going to say no to that, right? So, if they say, hey, we want to see if the AUC issues a permit first, then we wait and see, right? So.
And what's your hope and timeline for this? Because November idea.
Yeah. So I think the AUC process, if we go into a hearing, which seems likely, the AUC process is probably a January decision. I think that's my understanding. I don't know exactly what it'd be. That's up for the AUC to determine, but that's my understanding. So
is that kind of the timeline on backlog for a lot of these projects?
they have standard grids that talk the standard amount of times to hearing and standard amount of times to approval.
Okay.
Or rejection, a decision. That's what they call it. And so I think that takes us to January.
Okay.
That is kind of in flux.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're understanding at this point. And that's for the plant, right? The data centers not necessarily restricted by the plant approval. Now, do people want to sign a contract and let us start going to data center without the plants?
How do you power it?
I don't have an answer for you on that. That's not my decision to make. That's our customers' decisions to make. Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's
But it would be a data center if it was built. If they'd said, yes, we absolutely want to go ahead with this project, you wouldn't have power to it.
We would not have approved power to it, right?
Yeah.
But the thing, so with the timelines, and it's I get asked this question a lot, and it's hard to explain it because there's so many different permutations of what is possible for the schedule.
It's like building on quicksand for...
Yeah, exactly, right? So I'm not trying to answer ungenuinely when I'm asked this question. It's just there's a whole bunch of different layers. So our customers, if we built them the building, let's say, and the server room was ready for them to put their servers into, they have months of work to do before they can actually really fully use the building. So they may say okay, we see the permit is coming. Your confidence is going to arrive. The longest part of our schedule is for them to be able to have their servers ready. So there's a scenario where they say, go start building the data center. We know the power's not going to come till later. We believe it's going to come, with some risk.
Yeah.
And but we want you to start anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take us time to be ready. So
And then they would tie into the gas plant simultaneously.
yeah, exactly. And the gas plant would kind of like get caught up to like them, and then they would both be ready at the same time. So that's like one version of the schedule.
So in an ideal world, when you think of this in November, what is the timeline estimate that you think execution-wise in a hope and dream world? And then what's a realistic delayed possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the base case is probably like January, right? Tied to AUC permit issuance.
I don't envy your workers in January.
The more aggressive timeline is like what I just described, which could be, June, right? So that's kind of the spectrum.
You have a fascinating journey ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you've got a fascinating town also questioning.
A lovely town.
It is they are filled with fantastic humans. But again, you're the face of the concept, and there's in between governmental proceedings that become the complexity that residents have to face and question and ask details on. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight.
Thank you for all the great questions.
I know a lot more now.
Hopefully.
I probably can't repeat or regurgitate anything, but at least I know it.
Can I do one plug?
Yeah.
Please check out the website that we put up, the We Are Listening website, because there's a lot of content that we really tried hard to have it be factual and explain some of the things that I didn't know as part of this whole process. Like, how did the AUC come up with this rule for 5 decibels and things like that? We tried to look into those types of things as well. So yeah, there's
And did you even know about the AUC prior to having to engage with the AUC?
living in Ontario and Quebec, I'd never heard of the AUC. Yes.
Coming from Ontario, I had no idea either. It's a whole different world out
But I mean, I think they're well respected. Like, I think they do a lot of, they approve all the oil and gas projects, right? So I mean, they've been around a while. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they should know what they're doing.
They should know what they're doing. Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic. From my perspective, as I'll continue to say, my issue is proximity, not progress.
Yes. Well, it's great. Yeah.
But I really sincerely appreciate it. And I hope you have an interesting time meeting with people and individuals.
Yeah.
And more than anything, as I said to you and everyone else, I hope we can continue to converse and dialogue about the things that I appreciate you've heard my concerns and that I have my personal issues with it, and you've been respectful in listening to them.
Yeah, and we are here to listen, and but it doesn't mean everyone has to agree on everything. But we should, as neighbors, hopeful future neighbors, as a hopeful future old resident, we can at least be respectful.
We might have a few neighbors willing to sell to you.
Maybe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
There's a first act.
Perfect. Awesome.
How do I end it though? Hold on. If I hit that,